From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
The school year is well underway, and for Rhode Island leaders, many familiar challenges remain. Officials are touting improvements in standardized test scores, but they also acknowledge much more needs to be done, even as education leaders struggle to navigate policy shifts out of Washington. We'll cover it all with our guest this week on Newsmakers, Rhode Island Education Commissioner Angélica Infante-Green. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi, and we welcome back to the program Education Commissioner Angélica Infante-Green. It's good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
So we don't often start with good news on this program. It's not usually our bailiwick, but why don't we do that here? Relatively speaking, good news in RICAS scores in math anyway in Rhode Island have improved to pre-pandemic levels. I want to bring up some numbers on the screen, and folks can see that math proficiency increased 1.3% year over year. And as I said, they have surpassed the pre-pandemic levels, which in 2018-19 was just about 30%. So you must have, when that landed on your desk or in your inbox, that must have been welcome news for you.
Absolutely, because our school districts, our principals, teachers are working really hard. And, you know, it was almost to be expected, because before the RICAS came out, we also received a lot of accolades from Dartmouth, Stanford, and Harvard. They put out a report on the scorecard recovery. And in all of New England, Rhode Island is the state that is recovering the fastest. That's pretty big, I mean, for us to be in that position. So the RICAS results were not surprising, but it was really exciting. Because the other piece that I want everyone to know too, in fourth grade reading, we went from being 25th in the nation to being 14th. That's huge in the NAEP exams. We keep making progress, and that's what this is about. It's about moving forward, making sure that our teachers are getting support, that our students are in the classroom, and actually getting the instruction that they need to move forward.
But there are still some frustrating numbers in there, you know, and I want to bring up the ELA, English Language Arts scores there, the reading stuff. And, you know, in a vacuum, they're nothing necessarily to celebrate. Proficiency increased 2.9%, but still not at the pre-pandemic levels. And I want to put it another way. Nearly 7 in 10 elementary and middle schoolers are not at grade level, or I should say that's the math there, and a third are at reading at grade level. That's not a success story. Would you agree?
Well, I think that there's a lot of work to be done. I think we do have a success story because we're moving forward and we are recovering faster than other states. That does not mean that we are where we should be. I will, you know, for people to understand this, Massachusetts is the highest performing state in the nation, and their scores are 40 and 42. So it's a 10 percentage point gap with us, and for the first time in the history of Rhode Island, we have closed that gap with Massachusetts by 50%.
But
so
respectfully, that's also because Massachusetts isn't, as you just pointed out, isn't recovering as well. Is it so much that Rhode Island's improving more, or Massachusetts is sort of dropping?
Well, we can't be moving forward if we're not improving, right? We're improving. They are where they are. That's where their kids are. Like, that's just the fact of where the nation is. But what we are doing that other states are not able to do is move forward and continue to make progress. That's their new scores. That's where everybody is.
I have a broader question on this, Commissioner. I just saw this week out at UC San Diego, they put out a report on their incoming freshmen, and very alarmed by what they describe as a deep decline in preparedness. I realize we're talking about the other side of the country, but it resonates with stuff we're hearing all the time from college instructors. Both of us teach college classes where students just seem, they don't have as much reading comprehension. There's talk that in some cases students aren't reading full books anymore in school versus excerpts. How are you thinking about that rapid change in preparedness? It's coming amid aid. How are you thinking about all that stuff, even putting test scores to one side?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that have happened after the pandemic. One, kids had to learn how to socialize again. because if you talk to any kid, you know, they're texting. They don't even pick up the phone to talk to their friends. They're playing video games online. A lot of that happened during the pandemic, but that was happening prior to the pandemic.
Sure.
It just got exacerbated. And so we had to help them with that. And the pandemic actually had an impact on our students. Those kids that were home or were learning to read were either in first, second, or third during the pandemic. It was just different than what they had experienced in the past. What is clear to us is that we have to do a lot more deep work with our students, and that's why our
What does that mean for the person at home, like deep work?
Well, you know, having a chapter or two read is not enough. Right? We have to go from A to Z. We have to read the whole book. You gave that as an example. We have to bring the joy of reading. They have to read for pleasure and for learning. That is important. It's important to all of our kids. So we have curriculum that really focuses in on not just excerpts, but really diving into deep reading. We saw our numbers increase in the SAT scores in Rhode Island. In terms of reading. And one of the things that's important about that for us is that the SAT has changed. I think you guys might have heard it. Last year was the first year where when we grew up, remember they said pick C because you know you could guess. There's no more guessing in the SAT. It's a real measure of what you actually know. So if you guess and you get, let's say, a very difficult question wrong, they will not give you, right, they won't give you credit for it because you have gotten the easier ones wrong. So it is really, it's AI driven. And I think that one of the things that we need to do is to lean in to AI in our state. And we put out a guidance document.
I want to get into AI. I think this is very important, but I want to get into that later in the program. And I have just a couple of minutes before we go to a break. So I want to address this specific incident here out of Smithfield. 5 seniors, football players at Smithfield High School were suspended, then unsuspended after allegedly hazing a Jewish student. The school district hired an attorney to investigate. The superintendent is on paid leave. You have told us that you communicated with the superintendent, who again is on leave. What did you discuss and what did you learn?
Well, I communicated with her when it first happened. I wanted to sort of understand what happened globally and what they did about it and what their thinking was. And
can I back up just one step even further, Commissioner? Was this after it became public, when the Jewish Alliance started speaking out, or had you learned of it prior to that?
No, once it became public.
Okay.
I reached out to her and I said, well, what's going on? Please tell me what's happening. She explained more or less some of it. And it was pretty clear to me that there's work to be done. There's work to be done. We do not tolerate hate, bigotry, hazing, bullying. That's just not something that we can tolerate in any of our schools in Rhode Island.
Those groups had told us the students return to the team. Is that your understanding? Are they playing again?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Based on what you know about the incident, do you think the student athletes should have been reinstated, based on what you know?
I tell you this, I can't comment on it because there's an active investigation and now the case is at RIDE actually, so I can't comment on that, but I will tell you, I am a mother. I have 2 kids. There are consequences for my kids' actions. That's the bottom line. And it's also an opportunity to teach everyone in the community that we are just not going to tolerate that. So I can't talk about what she did or what the processes, but I have to say that I am firm that we as a community need to be clear with our students about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
That I don't know, and this might be my own ignorance, that I knew the investigation was a RIDE investigation. Now, can you just say a little more about that?
No. So it's not a RIDE investigation.
Oh, okay.
They have an investigation, but the case then gets brought to RIDE.
I see.
And right now it has been brought to RIDE.
So it is at your level?
It has come to us, yes.
How does that sort of process end? Do you announce something? Is there what's the final result?
Well,
when there will be a final result?
Yes, that is something that we will make public. But remember, they're coming to us because they have specific questions. The investigation of how it was handled is being handled at the district level.
Okay, we're going to go to a break. We have a lot to talk about. We already said we want to talk about AI and, of course, the Providence Public Schools. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. This is Ted Nesi. Our guest is Rhode Island Department of Education Commissioner Angélica Infante-Green. Commissioner, Mayor Smiley is operating under the idea that he'll get the Providence public schools back next school year. How likely is that?
Well, I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done. Remember, for the schools to go back earlier, because it was planned, I made it very clear that we would be sending them back to 2027. I know that there's a desire to have it earlier. There's a couple of things that need to be true. That there is some financial resources that are supported, that the buildings continue to in the direction that they're going in. Governance is a big problem, and that the school district continues to move forward. Because what we don't want to have happen is what happened with Hope High School. The state intervened in Hope High School, gave it back, and then the school declined again. We don't want that to occur. And what we're talking about is a year's difference. This district has made progress. They've had the first 2 blue ribbon schools ever in elementary school in Providence. They also, we also have CTE programs that have tripled in the district. We have a lot of things that are happening and still a lot of work to be done. But we need to ensure that the work that has already taken place and the progress can remain. And that's where we are right now. I don't think that anyone can say that they feel ready right at this moment. There's still work. I will tell you, the school board is going to training. There's still work that has to happen.
So what does your gut say? The percentage chance the state hands a school back in a year, which again Mayor Smiley thinks is happening?
Well, it's hard to tell.
50-50. Thank you.
I could say 50-50. I could say 50-50. It all depends.
Well, you can't decide probably like July 1st. Like, yeah, I guess I will give it to you. And then, we got to get ready. I mean, when do you think you have to decide by?
No, but we have been meeting with all the parties. I want everyone to understand that. They're monthly meetings that we sit together and we talk about this. My team sits with the city's team, with the Board of Education, with the Providence leadership. They sit together and they talk about all the things that need to happen. So it's not like we're going to pull the switch. That's not what we want to do. I have made it clear to everyone at this point that I don't think they're ready at this given moment. Will they be ready in a month or 2? Maybe. I don't know, but they know what they have to do, and we still have not seen that.
Real quick on Providence, and I'll move on. And this sort of on a different level, you have multiple staff members in Providence schools under administrative and police scrutiny. A librarian at Pleasant View Elementary School arrested after allegedly striking a student. Feinstein Elementary teacher charged with assault for allegedly biting a student. The superintendent notified at 2 different schools, parents at from 2 different schools, that teachers there were, quote, engaged with a student that violated our professional standards. I don't want to litigate each and every single one of these things. You wouldn't anyway. But, hearing all of that, parents, well, I am asking, what is going on at the schools when you hear about all these incidents?
Yeah, and I asked the same question because these are adults, right? You get hired, there's an expectation of how you're going to conduct yourself. These cases do not meet our expectations. That's why the moment that we find out about them, the person is removed, there's an investigation that takes place, and we're just not going to tolerate that. We're not going to tolerate adults behaving in a manner. Are you worried
it's a cultural problem or like a fundamental systemic issue in the Providence schools?
I don't know if it's just in Providence. I think that people are in need of additional supports. It's not just the students that are different after the pandemic, adults are too. The difference is that you're an adult. You cannot conduct yourself in this way. We are not going to accept that in any school. It's just not okay. I mean, when have you heard of such a thing?
Right.
Former Providence Mayor Jorge Elorza is now head of the influential group Democrats for Education Reform. He's been speaking out on all sorts of issues. He just, as I read the writing he's doing in his commentary, he just fundamentally seems to think Democrats have lost the plot on education policy a bit since Obama's presidency, becoming much more aligned with teachers' unions in terms of policy priorities as opposed to having more of that tension that there was between Obama's administration and the union view on things. You come from some of that same world of thinking about education policy. What do you think of that perspective?
Well, I think that there has been a little bit of a focus that's been lost on students. Like, that's the conversation that we need to have, all of us. And if we're not having that conversation, then we have a problem. So you're only going to hear me talk about what's a benefit for students, what teachers need, and that tension, it still exists. Trust me, it exists, because when we're putting our finger down, we just had our accountability scores come out. We met with the superintendents. We are clear, and now we're meeting regionally with them about how to make improvements. No one's hands off, and whatever it takes to get those improvements, that's what we're going to do. So that tension exists, maybe not as it did in the past, where it was very vocal and everybody was...
I'm thinking about like during Race to the Top and that whole period.
Yes. Well, Race to the Top was definitely a very stressful time, but it's a stressful time for us as well right now. I just think that our leadership has to be about improving outcomes for students and having more opportunities. CTE is really big right now, and we are leading the charge nationwide on our CTE programs across our state.
Let me ask you a question on CTE, because my colleague Alexandra Leslie has been looking at the RFP that's out for new charter schools. And she heard, as we usually do, the pushback from the unions that we don't need charter schools to do things like these CTE programs because we have them in the district schools. As they always say, stop putting money into charters, it should all be in the district schools. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's going to believe what they're going to believe. Charter schools are public schools. They just are. And CTE, we can't have enough of them, because my goal is that every single student graduates with a diploma and a credential. They may want to go to college, they may not want to go to college, or maybe they want to go to college and use the credential to get money to go to college. It is an industry that is booming, and our kids need to be there. We just, Lincoln is starting and Westerly are starting aviation. We are just broadening, and we want that for all of our kids. So we think that every single school in Rhode Island has to have some sort of CTE program. They'll be different, but we're trying to figure out what is the niche that Rhode Island is going to have. I do think, Breeze is here, that we dominate in that area. For us, it's about, because we're so small and we have limited funding, what is Rhode Island going to be the hub for education for our students? And CTE is one of the ways that we get there.
All right, we're going to take a break on the program. When we come back, we're going to talk about AI in schools. Our guest is Commissioner Angélica Infante-Green. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, Ted Nesi, and our guest is Education Commissioner Angélica Infante-Green. As promised, I want to talk about artificial intelligence in schools, but I'm curious, how do you use AI?
Oh, me personally,
yeah.
I use it in certain ways. I use it to review certain documents that I have that I've reviewed already. And then I'd say, okay, AI, look at it. Did I miss anything? This is what I saw. It does that. I use it in my personal life. So you could take your phone and put it in front of your refrigerator and say, create a meal. And it does that.
Yes. Does it work?
It actually works. You put it there, it sees what's in your refrigerator and says, okay, you can make pasta, you can do this, X, Y, and Z. I think the other piece where I use it I use it professionally to write some quick notes that would take a long time. I use it at home because I have 2 school-age kids. Mm-hmm. And, what I ask my daughter to do is when she's finished something, put it through AI, put the rubric in and say, where do I need to add, right? Not to use it to write your work, because we want kids to write. We want them to think. And she'll get back like, it's a B. You didn't write enough about this or that. And then she'll add and she'll write. We don't want to replace the work that the kids do with AI. And that's where the danger is, and that's where we have been really careful in Rhode Island.
Well, students, you guys smartly, I think, surveyed about AI and found that 20% of students, 20% say they use AI for schoolwork.
Yes.
Do you really think that number is accurate?
It's probably higher.
You think?
I do think it's higher.
I think it is higher as well.
Are you hearing it from teachers? Because we hear at the college level, everyone's talking about, I can tell these papers are coming in via AI, not.
Oh,
and yet
absolutely.
we don't have that due process, Ted and I have talked about it, to discipline or, because there's no real clear system to go, was AI used in this paper that they wrote?
And there's no real way to do that.
Right.
No system can tell you that, and no AI system can say AI generated all this. But what we do have, we put out guidance. We have an AI guidance for the state. A couple of things that are really important: safeguards and guardrails. Everybody needs to know that once you put something in an AI platform, that's it. The whole world has access to it. So you don't put
So it's a
student
privacy
information.
issue
Yes,
for you.
it's a privacy issue for me. It's safeguards. And also, we want our kids to learn how to write. When we use AI, we've put out a document on how to use it safely, how to use it to instruct. We have a couple of AI tools that we use. For example, Conmigo, which is a platform that gives students feedback. Remember that
Is that the one that was on 60 Minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we got that for free, I will say, for Rhode Island, and we use it. Remember, if you guys remember Clippy, remember that?
Oh,
Clip?
yes. I never
that
used
annoying
that.
thing.
Yes.
It's similar to that, but not like that. So what it'll do is that if there's an assignment, they'll give them feedback, and it's closed, right? So it doesn't go out into the the universe, the ether, but it gives the students like, hey, you may want to do this. I see this as a pattern in your writing, and it goes to the teacher. The teacher has that information, and it's real time. So as the teacher comes around and helps the students, they have added information. It's not replacing a teacher, but it's really helping them move forward.
Just a quick question on this, and we don't have to belabor it before I give it back to Ted. Reading the guidance that you guys put out, it was ambiguous to me, vague on what age students should start using AI. So I'll just ask you, should kindergartners be using AI? I mean, where to you is the line?
Well, I have to say that you're using it every day at home. Alexa is AI.
I'm obviously asking about in the classroom, Commissioner.
I know, but so I would say that students, you're not going to use it in kindergarten, first, second, or third. You're just not going to do that. You want the kids to have the skills, and then you can build upon the skills. So we're not using that in the earlier grades. Teachers may be using it to generate additional materials or to bring in videos, because you can say, give me a video of, Miss Rachel, who we were just talking about, those kind of things. But we don't want kids really working at that level with AI. That's not something we want.
We only have about a minute left, Commissioner, but I do have to ask you about everything going on with the federal government, funding changes, a civil lawsuit against the state over the Education of Color loan forgiveness program. How much has that changed how RIDE operates this year, the new administration, versus how much is it more headlines, but when you get down to the running the schools level, it's not as big of changes?
Well, I'll tell you, uncertainty is very problematic for us. We depend on knowing what the funding is going to be, because you make staffing decisions, you make programmatic decisions. So that has been really tough. We had our title dollars withheld for a significant period of time, and districts were talking about making cuts. So, you just can't turn on and off a switch. We depend on having continuity. So it has been very disruptive. For example, we ended up getting that money, but because there was a lawsuit. We have to invest in our schools. We
20 seconds left.
All right, we have $800,000 that was cut for professional development for special education teachers. Come on, we need that money. We need to be able to support our teachers. So it is frustrating. What we're trying to do at the state is really try to do all that work so that the districts can focus in on what's happening in their schools.
Commissioner, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And if you missed any of it, it's on WPRI.com. Don't forget, we are a podcast. Scan that code so you can take us with us, or take us with you. We'll see you next week.